Greetings, my fellow Catholic. Today I'm going to be teaching you 3 lessons on how to fundraise from saints. That's right, I'm going to give you fundraising advice from Catholic saints. Now, before we jump in, I'm just going to walk you through who I am and why I'm going to be talking to you about Catholic saints and fundraising. Now, my name is Brice Sokolowski. I run a website called CatholicFundraiser.net, CatholicFundraiser.net. I started this probably around, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago. And the whole reason I started this website is, well, I had been working for a diocese as a fundraiser, and all of my friends and a good number of people around me were asking me questions on how they fundraise. So they were running some type of apostolate. Usually it was pro-life. At the time I was very active in my youth group. So there were things with the youth group. There were things with pro-life. There was also, I knew a few monastic communities, and everybody was always asking, well, Brice, how do we fundraise? So I put up this website, CatholicFundraiser.net, just to kind of like share my best practices. And these best practices, it kind of spread like wildfire because, well, there was and there is a need for, I guess, a Catholic perspective to fundraising. And that's why I went to go work at my diocese, is because, well, I thought they could use a Catholic, a practicing Catholic who was interested in fundraising. So I thought, well, if I can align my Catholic faith in believing what the church teaches along with some fundraising practices that kind of like blend together, I think it's a recipe for success. So it was successful in the diocese, and then I put my website up. That way people could read what I was doing, and it kind of caught on quite quickly, so much so that I was invited to give presentations at Rome. I believe 2 or 3 times, I forget. I was invited in the Vatican as well to just provide some feedback and some suggestions. And I'm just delighted with the work that I'm doing, because I get to help Catholics like you do more of what they really want to do, and that's saving lives and saving souls. So yes, we're going to be talking about fundraising, but the whole reason we're here is because you want to do more of what God is calling you to do. And in order to do that, sometimes fundraising helps, but effective fundraising, where it doesn't clash with the mission, helps tremendously. Also, doing fundraising that doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of distractions also helps. So that's why I'm going to be talking to you about fundraising in the perspective of the saints. So a lot of my resources and my references and my approach actually comes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Catholic Social Doctrine, as well, the Compendium. I actually read that cover to cover. Great book on kind of action-oriented, how to live out our faith. And I found a lot of good information about fundraising. And also, I find a lot of good fundraising tips from the saints. So today, I'm going to be sharing you 3 tips from St. Paul, St. Robert Bellarmine, who's a doctor of the church, and St. Bernard of Clairvaux, who is also a doctor of the church, and Mother Teresa as well. The reason I put in Mother Teresa, kind of like the 4th bonus, is because a lot of people say, well, Mother Teresa never fundraised, and so they always kind of like juxtapose Mother Teresa with any Catholic organization who's fundraising, to say like, well, if you were really Catholic, you'd follow Mother Teresa because she never fundraised, which is actually not true. It's not to say that she did fundraising in the way that you probably think, or how I used to think, but she definitely did something. So I want to kind of debunk a few myths. So I'll leave that at the end. And so let's dive in to my 3 best recommendations. And so the first one comes from St. Paul himself, and it comes from Galatians, I believe, chapter 6. That's what it says in my notes. St. Paul, it's a great letter. Actually, I think if you're writing any type of appeal letter, you should read Galatians. It's a great reference because St. Paul is both personable and authentic. And in one of the lines, he says, and I'm quoting him, "See what large letters I'm writing to you in my own hand." I think that's really important with fundraising because he's personable and he's authentic. I get the sense, and I have looked at this in the past, but I've forgotten. But I think there was a lot of pushback on whether St. Paul was actually writing these letters at the time, and people were asking, well, are you writing it or somebody else writing it? And St. Paul is saying, look, see what large letters I'm writing to you in my own hand to confirm this is from me. And I think it's really important in fundraising, appeal letters or emails or even social media posts, that you find your own authentic voice. Usually you see appeal letters or newsletters or anything from a nonprofit is very bland and it almost looks too professional. Professional in the sense that the text, it just has no soul. It's very boring. That's what I mean by professional. Professional in that sense is not good. Professional in the sense that it looks good, it's well formatted, it's got nice pictures. That's fine, but be authentic and be personable like St. Paul. So make sure that when you're writing a letter and people open it up, they recognize that it's from you and it's from your apostolate, and it can't be from any other apostolate. So you really have to find your style of writing. And one of the best ways of doing that is just write a whole lot and go out and just write letters. I always tell people when they're writing appeal letters, take some part of the letter and try and write it in your own hand, in your own pen, as opposed to just printing hundreds and hundreds of copies. So that's point number one. Recommendation number one. Recommendation number two is from St. Robert Bellarmine, and one of his things that he was doing was tracking his donations. He actually hired someone to make sure that he would know what's going in and going out. So he was really big about transparency, which everyone's going to say they're big about transparency, but supposedly St. Robert Bellarmine was actually reviewing the stuff himself. And so he hired somebody that was professional and very trustworthy. And he would make sure he knew what donations were coming in, how things were spent. He would see the line items. So, again, you have to make sure that you know what the money's being spent to. It's not to say that you need to tell all your donors and all your prospects and all your contacts how money's spent. You can definitely have your annual report, but you don't have to be going out and telling people all the time what's going on. But you yourself, that's the key point, is you need to know what's going on with the money. You need to know who your donors are, and you need to know how money's being spent. Usually what I find with directors of nonprofits is that they really don't know this stuff, and they really just want to focus on the mission, and they don't want to be distracted. I get that, but at the same time, St. Robert Bellarmine, doctor of the church, he wanted to really make sure that he was a finely tuned machine with what he was trying to do, and this was one of his recommendations. If you want any links to this of where I reference, I'll include them as well. So that was point number two. Point number three is from St. Bernard of Clairvaux. He talks about having faith and taking action. And this is really important. So I'm just going to kind of reference what I said, what I wrote, and then I'll talk about it. Don't wait for donations to come in. So there was a story of buying salt. So the key point here is, and I meet a lot of great Catholics, well-intentioned, but they don't really think that they can do anything without any money. And it's a huge, it's just not the way that you want to think about things. You can do a whole lot, with God. Anything and everything is possible. And so in this story of St. Bernard of Clairvaux, there's a story of, I believe it was brother, St. Bernard asked his brother to go and buy some salt, but they had absolutely no money. And so the brother said, well, with what money do you want me to go off and buy salt with? And St. Bernard kind of responds, well, we don't have any money, but go off and do it. I have faith that things will work out, and when you go out and go get the salt, you're going to be able to get the salt. And so what happens is the brother goes out and says, well, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to go out. And he actually bumps into a priest, and the priest asks what he's doing. He explains, well, I'm going to go buy salt, but I don't have any money. Guess what happens? The priest gives him money, and he's able to get the salt. So the lesson here is to just go out and do it, or have the intention of doing it, not waiting around for donations to come in. It's the same thing with the apostles going 2 by 2, led by Jesus. Jesus says, go out with nothing. Don't take your staff. Don't take an extra cloak. Don't take anything. And when they do, it's from what I remember, they were a little skeptical, but when they came back, they were thrilled. They're like, it was unbelievable what we could do. And I think Jesus was kind of telling them, look, you don't need anything to do my will or to do my Father's will. Just go out and do it, and you're going to see something amazing happen. So the lesson here, St. Bernard is telling us, is that if you think you need money, okay, park that idea to the side, but still go out and just execute, and don't wait, and don't go and spend your time focusing on trying to find that donor. That's not what's going to happen. Help you. And then the last is Mother Teresa's recommendation on fundraising, and this kind of relates to St. Bernard's. Reduce our dependency on material goods by depending more on the charity we offer others. This means reducing the cost of things you may not really need and increasing your level of care, support, and involvement. And again, I'll add the link of where I got this. But, you know, if you think you need to buy something or you think you need donations for something, I always tell people, rethink it and figure out how to do it, without having to spend the money, which is Mother Teresa's suggestion. And then flip things in the sense that depending more on the charity. So focus more on the charity that you're giving to other people, not just of your mission, but of the people all around you. So even if somebody you think you want them to donate, be charitable to them and figure out, well, what can I offer them? There's the classic saying, it's harder for a camel to go into the eye of a needle. It's easier for a camel to go into the eye of a needle than it is a rich man to get into heaven. So if you're seeing somebody rich, and you're thinking, oh wait, they could donate to me. Well, flip it around, because guess what? That camel has a better chance of going through that needle than they have of reaching heaven. So go out and be charitable to them, and you'll be amazed at what happens. I'm not going to say they are definitely going to donate, but that's not the reason you're doing it. But just go out and be charitable to people without any expectations. But at the same time, obviously have a plan. And I guess that's where I want to end today, is if you're looking for a plan for your fundraising, how to put all these different suggestions together, how does it look when you put all the pieces aligned, and how do you assemble it in your apostolate? Well, that's where you go to catholicfundraiser.net. There's actually a free guide if you want additional support, the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. You can download that absolutely for free. And then on a weekly basis, I share with you what I'm doing with my fundraising. I'm helping Catholic organizations fundraise tens of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. And it's fun on both ends. It's not all about how much money we're raising, but it's all about the impact. And the great thing about my job is that I get to help Catholics. That's all I do, is I help faithful Catholics pursue their mission of saving souls, saving lives. And if you need help, I'd love to help you. Just go over to catholicfundraiser.net, download the 10 Commandments, and stick with me week to week to week, and we'll help you fundraise. So with that said, God love you, and I hope this video has been fruitful for you. God bless.